Greetings and salutations, fellow talking ambulatory meat sacks of blood and bone. I am your ever-eccentric host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. And this is my 450th episode! Totally technically the 451st episode, because I didn't catch the whole, it's a special number last episode, and I didn't even realize what number we were on, but there you go. Welcome to the madness! On today's show, DJ Zed gets frustrated that I cut off every gem of a song way too early. He's really, really eager to share these new tracks with you. And the forthcoming Justice for Ronald Green album. Which I don't... DJ Zed and I have to have a serious conversation about this, because that's what he wants to call the album. The Justice for Ronald Green album. And I think that's great. Obviously, I support that. The moment I saw that the police footage had been released, I was there with dropping a Justice for Ronald Green. I think it's still currently those are my colors right now, as one might say. That's my banner and my profile picture right now, because I'm committed to supporting that cause. Because it's, never mind all the other people that cops kill, and I don't hate cops, right? Let me be really clear: you can support the troops and also dismantle the war machine. That's right, folks. I'm one of those crazy mofos. By the way, that was Mid-Tempo 1 Perfection Layered Remix. Take 1. A DJ Z gem of a remix on the Remix Live contraption from the digital future. Ever stoic, DJ Z is just sort of staring at me from his end of the studio. And one of his animatronic eyebrows is slightly akimbo, and the other one is poker face, impenetrable. So I really don't know what you're trying to communicate. But today's show, as most of my shows are, is radically unscripted and perhaps a bit underprepared for. But nonetheless, I think you're here to be entertained by the wild oddities of my opinion-spewing mouth. The opening of our show had two little tracks. One which will be a mainstay of the show, which is this one. I like it a lot. In a breaking news alert, politics is redonkulous, beyond control stupid. And no offense, dear politicians, but you've perfected a career out of something we do not need: drama and ideological football throwing and goalpost moving games of political drama that enthrall the audience the way in which the arguments between pro wrestler character personas on the pro wrestling theater stage of pro wrestling might enthrall the audience. Think about it. And it's no ironic comedy moment that Trump tried to get cool in with the wrestling world by being a character on a wrestling episode. I forget which, I forget when, I forget who was fighting who, but those are irrelevant. There was Donald Trump being Donald Trump as a character of Donald Trump, because wrestling is fake. And politics, you've rendered yourselves equivalent to, because what the world needs, what countries and communities need, dare I be so bold as to prognosticate in this matter, is civic action, civic discourse that builds consensus and renders, and I'm picking my words very carefully here, civic action. And it should be a carefully thought out and inclusive collaborative loop. Community by community, state by state, region by region, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, and at a networked federal level. Tune in for more snarky tips on how we can heal the system into a better system, as opposed to go and butcher each other for their profit or pretend to have a revolution that totally fails to do anything besides put some new asshat in power. Because I don't know about you, but that's what the last 500,000 years of human history reads like. We don't like that guy. Let's have a war. We killed each other. Yay, somebody won the war, and our kids can feel good about their life now, we think. New asshat in power turns around, does something more, worse, or better, or stupider, or whatever, but then the cycle repeats itself at some point. What the bloody violent revolutions do not address, dear friends and compatriots of humanity, is the root cause of all the madness. And that's today's breaking news. So don't get ego-trapped into thinking you've got to hate other people. Yes, there's a lot to be angry about. And yes, there are things that will just bring you to blood-boiling outrage. The way in which, for me, it is outrageous that in this country, the land of the free and the home of the brave, people and politics and politicians, but also the people, can't confront the deep, dark, insidious reality that we're allowing ourselves to be cajoled and manipulated into intractable ideological rifts that prompt violence, whether you realize it or not. Everybody who's angrily upset at some other group is caught up in that echo chamber of echo chambers. Am I? Probably. Sure. Fair question. Thanks for telepathically sending that at me, whoever did that. I'm going to start being weird about the show that way, because sometimes in my head questions turn up, and that's what is one of the things that send me off on random tangents. If you haven't noticed, I often don't technically address the question that triggered me, but I just now did. And I don't know that someone's sending that in telepathically, but if you were listening, dear listener, and you had that question in your mind, and then you thought it, and then I spoke it out loud, maybe you did. Who knows? The world is weirder than we like to pretend it is. And one of the things we aren't doing is tapping into that. I digress. Welcome to today's show. It's a Saturday. It's May 29th. It's been a long effing 29 days. Am I right? Or am I right, folks? And as I promised you long ago, during the high holy month of cannabis, I really want to, I think we need a slightly sexier, and I'm an idiot because I'm sure if I just looked up the Latin scientific term for cannabis, it's the sexy word I'm looking for. But I haven't done that. I don't know why. My entire life I've never done that. I should. Mental note. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who do not know, I truly have this absurd and egregiously bizarre of a persona and personality in real life. The only part that I'm role-playing is the cybernetic artificial entertainment flesh pod from the not-too-distant futuristic timeline that's convergently related to yours because of the Trumptopian overlap and the imminent robot invasion threat. that I've come here. Well, I didn't really come here on my own free will. I got projectile vomited over here, and I'm now stranded with y'all on your delightful planet Dirt, with its many plutocracies of war game masquerading as democracies of freedom. And while it's delightful, what is that saying you all have? It's been real. It's been fun. Can't actually say it's been real fun. And while part of me wants to just like hitchhike home, like Ford Prefect, someone I feel as if I actually have met. The magic of reading other people's fictional worlds, right? Like you feel like you've lived a life with those folks, especially if you read the book more than once or twice. But I digress. I'm just spiraling. I think I was trying to fill time until it was actually 12:12 to call out the time. But it's now 12:11, and it will shortly be a magical 12:12 Pacific Standard Time. And I humbly invite you to do two things. Join me in exploring the past while we also simultaneously venture forth together into the future. That's what this podcast's all about. This ain't your grandpappy's podcast show, folks. DJ Zed said the new Super Micro Deluxe format calls for a new audio entertainment tease track now. Yes, sir. Welcome to the show. We're going to nostalgically revisit just the titles of some of the episodes that have brought us here to this present moment of talking about 450, technically 451 episodes. And I'm sorry, technically, if you want to get 1212, bing, if you want to get really micromanagement about technicalities, I did totally flub a hot minute ago. And like the moment I hit record and should have started saying things, and I didn't turn off I think the mic was muted, and I just had this momentary like brain fart, neuro lag, like my responses and my reflexes and the buffer between actual reality, what's going on, and my brain modeling it into 3D in my head, and then me perceiving that. It just all kind of kerfluffled, which is a technical term, kerfluffled. And instead of hitting the mic on or a music track button, I hit stop, the biggest button on the screen, which is, relatively speaking, the last button I'm supposed to push. So then episode 451 technically has been deleted, and this is its replacement. But it was up for a hot minute, and it was only an nth of a second long, and it was dead silence because I was totally having a moment. And now for your audio entertainment, Hard Techno Remix Live, New Levels of Depth, DJ Zed, from the forthcoming fictional DJ Zed, I ruined your thing, album, because he's dropping two fictional albums at once in the coming days and weeks. Not really, but sort of. Here goes. That's right, folks. You will be listening to the rest of that track on the forthcoming animatronic dance party episode, whenever we finally get around to doing that, right, DJ Zed? It's like a super, at this point, that and any of the tangent episodes are sort of just like extra deluxe candy gravy surprises on any given day, because we might, DJ Zed is always annoyed when I speak exclusively in the first person, because we are two people here, two animatronic. I mean, I'm technically not an animatronic, but whatever. What was I saying? Oh, right. We might get all worked up and decide to drop a bonus episode today. We might not do another episode for a week. At this point, the official mission statement has been achieved. There's enough content that if you wanted to listen to this show daily, you will enjoy an interesting mix of revisiting the past and taking a fresh take on it. Because I bet you haven't heard too many people discussing world events and sociological, political, and ideological constructs quite in the way that I am inclined to do. But who knows? Maybe you have. If you're, for example, if you know who Terrence McKenna is and have listened to more than 3 of his things on YouTube, especially his official ones, like if you're familiar with the Transcendental Object at the End of Time as a documentary, then you may not be overtly shocked by the contents of this show. If you've never heard of that, then welcome to the moment where I am the gateway drug for you to be introduced to that, because that is a documentary. If you consider yourself a free thinker and a critical questioner of what's going on in the world, right? A lot of people do. A lot of people waving that critical thinking, question everything flag. Curiously, a lot of those same people turn around and will piss in your face, metaphorically speaking, about how their self-appointed ideological construct model, which is usually just a collection of other ideological constructs that are being ladled out into the world, and that they've, have claimed that this is their own, and that it is beyond reproach and shall not be questioned by anyone, especially not you freaking weirdo of a person / apparently you're a robot. So, such is life. But here we go. An example of, by the way, if you're new to the show, welcome. I am the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Humbly allow myself to introduce myself to you, a fractal mystic podcast host. I am fascinated by the exploration of the radical intersection between politics, society, and transcendent spirituality. And that's why I do this podcast show, which has been, ever so interestingly, gaining quite a diverse international audience from all around the living mother womb that is giving birth to you. Because it's neither flat nor a globe-ish shape. She is a much more complex, multidimensional being of meta form, and we, the living inhabitants of her ovaries, are like leaves at the very, very top and about to break off branch of a very old tree that cannot see the base. We're arguing about whether or not the tree has roots and are willing to kill each other over it. No, my more favorite, I like that one. There's a whole complicated poem that I wrote about the leaf analogy, about imagining you're walking along a path and you hear voices down the path, and as you get close to this one ancient tree that's losing all its leaves, you see at the very top 2 ancient, wizened-looking leaves, etc., etc. But when you can hear what they're saying, they're just being assholes at each other about whether or not the tree is alive, whether or not the tree has roots, and whether or not the tree is here for them to destroy and commodify. If you came across that and it was happening on a tree, you would probably stop and go, whoa, 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 you guys, what the hell is wrong with you? You're doing the whole leaf thing all wrong. No, hold on a second. I don't mean to be rude. And then they'd probably get pissy with you and start a war, but I digress. That's what it's like to be here in this divine, magical, life-giving womb place, because that's what the word matrix actually means. For those of you who think it means some horrible digital or other mental construct jail, that's some postmodern hijacking of the term, for which you really ought to use other language, in my humble opinion, because we ought to honor this ancient root meaning of the term the matrix, which is divine mother life-giving womb. It might actually help us understand our predicament better. Another analogy I like to share, and I think I'll drop right here for you guys as bonus content, is the conundrum of it's a thought experiment, right? Like, take yourself to this place. Imagine, if you will, the inside of a rotting appendix. It's a few hours away from beginning the critical danger zone, approaching the critical danger zone of bursting, and potentially killing the human being that is walking around going, why do I feel odd today? I feel a little rough, has no awareness of their internal systems, has no understanding that they've treated their body like shit and that their appendix is about to burst because it's got a bunch of crap in it doesn't need. In that appendix, living in the shit and mire of all the things that go on in the cul-de-sac of the large intestinal systems, there's a complex society of different tribally organized flora and fauna, right? Different submicrobial creatures that, with just a little bit of imagination, you can credence having consciousness and therefore language and therefore culture, etc. Science would tell you, tisk, no, there's no way that the probiotic biome inside your body is so advanced. But then again, science still isn't quite ready to accept that science itself is indicating that plants have consciousness, like rudimentary self-awareness of their environment and decision-making faculties, because they aren't just the leaves that we perceive. That's your today's secret nugget of Zen, folks. I digress. That's not what I wanted to be talking about. And I'm supposed to keep this show episode thing super tight and tidy and not ramble on for 17 hours. So it's been a long, strange trip, my friends. This journey from 0 episodes to 450 episodes, from which I'm culling all the sweet, delightful nuggets of intellectually challenging things I'm talking about and throwing at you. But I thought I'd highlight a few episodes that, just in case you haven't checked them out, it won't destroy the progression of experience, because as random as this show may seem, there is indeed a sort of intended, overarching experiential design in mind. It's just arbitrary in a way, in a fractal way, so that it's not that arbitrary. And right when I sent that, I looked up and it was 24 minutes and 42 seconds into the episode. Lovely. I just wish I had nailed the chime right on the time instead of like several seconds later, but whatevs. It's been a magical journey, folks, and I humbly thank you with the deepest and most sincerest of gratitude. As we turn our attention, let's break it up just a little with a little micro tease of music. This time around, it will be the Organic House song, which is the title you actually chose, the Organic House Song, on Remix Live. It's little mini title, No Apologies, Funky Mix. DJ Zed, New Beginnings. Here's that bit, just the first little teasy chunk of it. Join me, friends, in taking a look back at a couple episodes I just pulled out randomly. I don't even know what their stats are. I don't know how few or how many listens, etc. And it's not about that. It's about sharing some of these thoughts and giving you the opportunity to sort of follow along to, hey, man, here's a thing I want you to think about, like my weird, humble suggestion. Dig around, go to the show's page on Sprecher.com. Or if you can do this in your app that you are catching the show with, then huzzah, you can just do it, follow along in there. And search for or find or scroll down to, in the show stream, an episode entitled, and I quote, "To unify, we must be willing to abdicate." And cue that up or download that down or something, and then check it out. And I'll read you the little info blurb to give you a preview sense. It was a late night episode. Apparently, either it was back in 2020 or I accidentally used the extended quarantine 2020 version of the cover where I didn't update that 2021. Either way, in the info section, I wrote in the following blurb. Unity. In this hyper-polarized environment, how can unity be achieved? And then like a little haiku answering its own question, although this is not following haiku rules in any way, shape, or form, right? Compassion, forgiveness, abdication. In my humble opinion. Late Night Thoughts, the Almost Daily ZenCast, Mr. Zeppo. Check it out. And more importantly, and forgive me for being so tyrannically explicit in my suggestion here, but I humbly invite you to drop your comments. This episode has no messages yet. You could be the first to write a message, which will be featured in a not too distant future episode when I come back around and be like, check out those fascinating comments and messages. You can do that there. I don't know that I can find those comments if you do it in one of the podcast catchers. For example, if you're listening to the show on Deezer or Podcast Addict or Podchaser or even the, I don't know what this is supposed to mean, GeoSavan app, which is kind of randomly popular on. It kind of cycles through, and then sometimes it's it spikes on that platform for some reason, or whatever. I don't know that, if you're in iHeartRadio listening to this show or on Apple Podcasts, that you can make comments in that platform. I think I've rambled about wanting to find out how to fix this or make this happen. But if you definitely, absolutely want your comment to be heard, and I'm begging you folks, come on down. It's pretend it's a game show. If you want to be recognized and quoted on the show, you can do it by going to Sprecher.com and creating an audience member profile for yourself. It's totally free. And it's a way to engage the most directly with this show. If you're not down for some reason, or you can't, the website doesn't work where you're at, and you are on Facebook, go to Facebook and go, I don't need to open that for myself. Why did I just do that? Go to Facebook and open up the official Facebook page for the podcast. Those are the two places I'm going to check. Apparently, ironically, the place I see the most comments on, most of which are just like spam comments, is over on the YouTube page, which is all confusing, and I've yet to figure out how to properly solve the problem of the fact that I have two YouTube pages, and some of my content is on one of them, and some of the other content for the same podcast is on the other. And I want to migrate all this stuff, but I know that would just be like 72 hours of tediously, it'd be like a week's worth of really tedious work of just like, I'm not going to be able to do anything else. I'm not going to be able to draw. So that'll interrupt the 90-day Sketchathon that I'm in the middle of. Stay tuned. We're going to have an update episode in a hot second about that. It'd be, it would interfere with the very projects I'm trying to promote, which is really weird. But I've got to do something about it. But there's a way to get there. But I really should be more diligent and check the official most recent YouTube posting, because that's apparently where a lot of people are willing to make comments. But I humbly digress. Let us proceed with the show. Check that episode out. It's only 36 minutes and 54 seconds, so it isn't one of the 5-hour-long redonkulous episodes. And it's got, I think, quite, if I remember correctly, and it's weird for me, quite honestly, that sometimes I don't even know what I said the moment I'm done with the show. I'm like, what did I even say? Because it kind of disappears from my mind. It evaporates. I get into the zone and the words start flowing and I start sharing my thoughts and opinions and my concerns and the things I've observed. And I'm not, I'm no expert, folks, but I do think that we could spend a little more time building consensus instead of pissing each other's faces and threatening each other and building tensions towards eventual violence. Because compassion, forgiveness, and abdication are spiritual practice that purge and heal both the individual and the collective network. And that's some deep shit, ain't it, friends? And now, to break things up before I talk to you about another episode I would encourage you to visit, I'll tease you with the third teaser dip into some recently mixed tracks for you. I thought we had some groove pad tracks all up in here for this episode, but I guess we don't. Oh, I think I posted those to the other thing. Okay. Hard Techno Remix Live. Oh no, I already did that one today. Eurodance song. Didn't we already do that one too? No, I did. I used hot song. We used the word song in Organic House Song too. Eurodance Remix Live. New Groundwork to be. DJ Zed from the New Beginnings album. Enjoy this teaser and then come on back for the animatronic robot dance music mega episode, which is sort of suspensefully going to drop sometime soon. And I played way more of that track than I meant to, but that's fine. It's a juicy, very danceable track. Oh, thanks for the notification. I just got a notification on one of my screens. Happy birthday to the video game community that is sort of deep in my closeted heart of gaming, because it's the only game that I currently even pretend to play, because I don't really play that much. But EVE Online, 18 years. I haven't been part of the community for 18 years. I've only been part of the community for a couple of years, but it's that kind of gaming environment where you can do almost anything and you can do absolutely nothing and have lots of fun in the game. Check it out if you're into space, epic weirdness, because it is weird. It isn't your typical space fighter pilot style game. It isn't necessarily fast-paced and driven all the time. You could literally just sit around for hours and nothing will happen. But there's like deep suspense because something might happen. And then you can obviously just go with a group of people and get really deeply engaged in butt whooping of all kinds, and then get your ass handed to you. Such is life of a PK server game. One of the longest standing. It's quite the thing. I'm such a nerd. I want to do fan fiction literature about characters set in a sci-fi, like future visionary, like imagined version of the future generation of it. So tune in for that. I do fully intend to cycle back around and actually spend a week or so updrafting some things that have been slowly percolating and finally doing a big update to that and all the other worlds within worlds of my books within books on Wattpad. If you want to support these and the other crazy things that I do, dear friends and listeners, check out my new centralized depository of all my links. It's easy to remember, and it's easy to type into your thing, and you can just go find me. And I'm just double checking that it is what I think it is before I say it, so I don't look like a schmuck or sound like an asshat saying it. Solo.to. I wish it was something less weird. That doesn't roll off the tongue, but it's short and it's impossibly easy to write down. Solo.to/my name, Mr. Zeppo. And there you can find all my significant links, the 2 podcast channels that I'm talking about, the official Facebook page for the Almost Daily ZenCast, my art gallery, 2 versions of my art gallery. If you want to just look at the art and not be part of the community and support and click thumbs up and stuff, there, that's the second art gallery. But the Behance, it's the first one on the list. That one is a full-blown like social media community full of really amazing artists, most of them infinitely better than myself. But you're more than welcome to come and visit my gallery and check it out and stuff and help support it, etc. Bloom, thanks for that. Had to put that blurb out there. Had to do the humble self-promotion hustle a little bit. So 450 episodes, friends, and we've talked about a lot, and I've been consistent in my inconsistency, if I dare can say that about myself. Why did I close that? I needed to flip through it to like talk about the next thing. That last episode I steered you towards, like, I think that's a strong one. There are, of course, horrible ones, and there's been some where we've had like technical problems, which I'm aiming to hopefully finally get around and tweaking and fixing. So bookmark this for later, for when I drop the updated sound rebalanced version of it. Because many audiences, one of the most consistent comments I get on some episodes is that, yo, bro, I can't really quite hear you, and I've got it turned all the way up, which is unfortunate because it's not something that happens to a lot of people, but on the default audio input for the device I've done these episodes on, in the Sprecher Recording Studio app. It's for some output devices not the optimal volume level, and that's tragedy. But I'm going to be I'm targeting this next one. Where are we really? What is this place? A Today's Nugget of Zen special episode. It's 33 minutes and almost 33 seconds long. When I remix it and recut it and re-upload it, it will be 33 minutes and 33 seconds long for that fun double chime of magical numbers. The info blurb, for those of you curious, for that episode read, Today's Nugget of Zen. This, open quote, place, close quote, is not a place, ... It is so much more than that. And the hashtags were Living Cosmos, Mr. Zeppo, the Almost Daily ZenCast, Today's Nugget of Zen, from 11 months ago. I screwed up and I only played one piece of music. I don't know what happened there with the chapters. The chapters are wrong. It only registers one piece of music in the chapters, but the audio waveform clearly indicates two. But anyways, that's one I will be bookmarking to updraft and make better. So if you haven't listened to that, just remember and stay tuned, because I'm sure in a live episode I'll update it. But go take a listen to it anyways, actually, and let me know if it's like kind of okay, like you can kind of hear it, or if the volume is terrible, or if it needs to be louder on your device. And send your comments to the page there. Another one where I think I brought some challenging thoughts about what the craziness we're living through is entitled Pre-Dystopian Privilege. And I just love it when I'm inspired by some halfway decent alliteration. My info blurb for this one is it just reads Act 3 and 1/3. The show must go on. It's a Good Morning Trumptopia episode with a dystopian worldview edge. It's got a couple of decent tracks on it from the ever stoic DJ Zed. And we are quite privileged, friends. And I say that with some sarcasm and some jadedness, right? Because I was having a really candid conversation recently, and the other party indicated that for the first time in our narrative of conversing, that they're convinced, or at least terribly concerned, that the human species is not going to be much longer. Wow. And it's 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Boom. While there's always hopes, folks, and we cannot, I had to acknowledge that, like, it's entirely possible, and that they were deeply concerned, right? But they were also not, like, wildly outraged or too disturbed by it, because they also sort of knew that, like, maybe not. Maybe we'll get our shit together and figure out a way to survive, because we are quite the survivalist species. And I don't mean to project too much onto my acquaintances' conversation, but I certainly had several thoughts then, during that conversation, that vibed and reminded me of this episode. And the fact that, in a way, we are quite privileged to be sort of cognizant of just how preeminently the dystopian image is upon us, like the dystopian nightmare of what we might have done. There's a million bazillion different ways it's been expressed, as many comic books and novels and movies that have been made in a dystopian setting, right? But whatever, if you take those as an aggregate, as a representation of potential outcomes that are over here all collectively in a sort of cohesive cloud that you could call the dystopian quadrant of potential outcomes. It's an alarming thing to realize, but it's also, I guess, to drive the point home about what that whole episode's about, there's a privilege in that. If we take correct action, and I don't know how explicitly, these are my thoughts about it now. I don't remember where I went with it then, but listening to the two in conjunction, this episode and that episode, will probably spark some interesting, provocative questions and thoughts. To share with you where I could say my thinking about that question and this thing is, we cannot allow ourselves to fall victim to the worst of our dystopian nightmares. Even as, more accurately, we are drawn towards the manifesting of them, right? Hello? You guys are still arguing about polemics in politics, and you're literally building the robots that you have nightmares about? There's so much to unpack, friends, but collectively, if we can strive towards a new middle ground, not a new center in the political polemic dynamics that we all currently recognize and mildly despise from our own perspectives, but from an organic, dynamic, all-inclusive, recursive, collaborative, consensus-building sort of homing into new centers of consensus, then we can get our shit together, both in terms of how do we avoid the apocalypse, how do we avoid the man-made dystopian apocalypse, to be more accurate, right? Because the apocalypse, as with most important spiritual terminology, it is not that which most people are running around babbling about like chickens with their head cut off. Apocalypse and revelation are to be seen in regenerative and persistent ongoing ways. So, too, creation, in my humble opinion. That's not got a lot to do with that episode in particular, but it's a bit of like nugget of Zen wisdom that it needs to sort of be sprinkled throughout. I probably do talk about it in that other episode I was just talking about, today's nugget of Zen, where are we really? What is this place? Although that may be sort of driven in the moment by one of my side passions is helping people caught up in the flat Earth versus globe Earth polemic treadmill of distraction to realize, oh, I don't need to be on this treadmill. I don't need to be in this hamster ball of arguing about which one of those two, tragically not fully accurate, not, however much truthiness they each contain, they explicitly, until recently, because they're like, we better hijack this other thing because people are calling it out. And to wrap up the show as we get around to the 50-minute mark, dear friends, I humbly point you towards another fun episode, a whole category of episodes that if you have not quite yet checked them out in depth, I humbly invite you to, because they are sort of at the core of this show and some of my better episodes, if I can say that, in terms of wide-ranging commentary that ultimately recursively feeds back on itself in terms of the sort of meta message or narrative that is being woven by this podcast. But from 10 months ago, and way beyond too, from even earlier in the show, the unauthorized and explicit readings mini sub-series, there's this one that I entitled A Little Light Reading on a Sunday Morning. I think I need to address the volume issue with that one too, which is ironic because I thought that was a problem from a lot longer ago. I didn't realize that it has occasionally cropped up in more recent episodes. But as I am wholly and radically unscripted and sometimes woefully underprepared, I had a concept for what this show was going to be about, and here we are experiencing some technical awareness. But go check it out and let me know if it's unlistenable too. And also bookmark it as one of the interesting episodes worthy of going back to in the not-too-distant future and checking out if you have yet listened to it. And then, generally speaking, dear friends and audience members, whether you're new to the show or you're a long-time enthusiast coming back to see what's going on with the most recent episode, I humbly encourage you to dig a little deeper every day and hop around. Jump according to interesting keywords that catch your attention, or dig into one of the special series that are subsegments of the show, like today's Nuggets of Zen, or Late Night Thoughts, or there's been others. Check them out and go on a lateral journey of just checking out those episodes for a hot minute. And thank you as always for being an interested and enthusiastic audience tuning in to this show as it evolves and devolves and reassembles itself over time, because it is experimental in the way that I talk about it in the intro. An experimental freeform talk radio style audio blog podcast entertainments show for your ear holes. I do mean that I am, in some ways obviously, and some ways not so obviously, experimenting with how you have your direct and personal phenomenological experience of observing through your faculties of listening to this strange and bizarre series of words that come out of my mouth. Remember, folks, peace, love, and grooviness are not ridiculously cheesy, hippie words to be ignored. They might just be powerful, strong energies in the universe that require our attention to be cultivated and amplified. So when I say, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart, please know that I mean that more than just figuratively. And that I hope you feel it on occasion. As always, friends, thank you for tuning in. This has been the 450th and 451st episode special deluxe of the almost daily ZenCast. And I hope that you are enjoying the ride. Strap in. Here's a final bit of music from our recent endeavors. Oh wait, have I already played everything? Pooh. I've already played everything. Let's play out the last track that was running. We'll just let it end the show. Enjoy, friends, and pay it forward. Tell your community about this show. Help the audience grow internationally so that we may share in some community building together, friends, because that's another tangent on this show that is hopefully got a lot of momentum and legs to it, because I mean it and I love it and I want it to grow, and I hope you join me in that thinking. Peace out. Go forth and meditate with forgiveness and healing in your heart. It is our calling, if I may be so bold, as to end the show on that thought. Peace